Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome into the 143 with episode 206. Nick, how are we doing today?
We're doing good. Had some pretty interesting games. Good overall weekend of football. You know, you had games Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then you had a couple college football playoff games. So, you know, we were parked in front of the TV for the better part of the weekend for a good amount of time. Just a good weekend to be a football fan.
Yep, got to enjoy it now because it'll be over in a little bit over a month. We're going to have no more football. It's flown by this season. And we're going to start you off stat of the week, brought to you by Andrews Logistics, with a team whose season is over. The Dallas Cowboys have a 4,000-yard passer in Dak Prescott, a 1,000-yard rusher in Javonte Williams, and two 1,000-yard receivers, George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, and they did not make the playoffs. When you hear those numbers, you would assume that the team has a great offense, which they do, and you would probably just assume that they're good enough to be in the playoffs, but their defense is one of the worst, if not the worst in the league, and they are the reason we did not make playoffs this year. Another disappointing season for the Cowboys. We're not going to dive too much into it, but great seasons for our offense, terrible season for our defense.
Yeah, just the epitome of what it's been all year long. I feel like we've been highlighting it week in, week out. Not really much to say because the season's been over, but player of the week, Puka Nacua put on a clinic on Thursday night. Unfortunately, not enough as the Rams lose that game, but he had 12 catches for 225 yards and 2 touchdowns. There were a lot of, hot, really good offensive play from teams this weekend, so you could have picked just about anybody from any game to choose for player of the week, but, Puka Nacua has been putting on for
career game
for 2 seasons now, and he's just not stopping, so putting up a case for offensive player of the year, so I think you just had to highlight that. Rams lose, but, they're in a good spot.
Yeah, we'll start off with the Rams-Seahawks game. Just a really interesting game with the Rams. Had a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter with, 9 minutes to go. They have the 16-point lead. It kind of feels like it's over. And then Seahawks defense gets a stop, and Rashid Shaheed takes a punt return to the crib. And they make the 2-point conversion. And then they get the ball right back, score a touchdown, and tie the game with a 2-point conversion. But the 2-point conversion that they tied the game with was probably one of the weirdest plays we've ever seen. Sam Darnold throws a ball tries to throw a screen to the running back, Charbonnet. It gets deflected by a defender. It's called an incomplete pass. Charbonnet picks the deflected ball up in the end zone. They review the play. See, it's a backwards pass off the hand of the defender. Charbonnet picking it up in the end zone means fumble picked up by the offense in the end zone, so they get the 2-point conversion. Eventually, Seattle in overtime wins it on another 2-point conversion. But that 2-point conversion right there was interesting to me. I'll let Nick dive into it because they had already lined up for the kickoff. They were about to kick the ball off, and then the refs blew it dead and gave them the 2-point conversion. I don't want to speculate here too much, but always when something happens weird like that, you got to assume that someone made a call from somewhere to get the game stopped.
The main thing for me is that they blew the whistle. So,
yeah.
By rule, the play was dead. And so I understand that, we reviewed it, it was actually a fumble, but, you blew the play dead. So at that point, the play was over, right? And then, like you said, they had already lined up to kick off, and at that point, that's when they went back, awarded points, whatever.
Yeah.
And it makes you raise an eyebrow a little bit. It's just like,
We don't love to see things like that.
Very, very interesting.
I think after that,
I don't want to say they made a call, but it just looks that way.
After that touchdown score, there were 6 minutes left. I'm pretty sure both teams had the ball 3 times each and just 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And eventually the Seahawks won it in overtime. So the Rams did have chances to go win this game, but Seattle with that win has the 1 seed in the NFC right now. So big win for Seattle.
They're in a first-round bye, which is huge.
Yeah. Which, I think the 1 seed's still going to be between actually 3 of the NFC West teams right now are kind of fighting for it. You got Seattle, LA still, and San Francisco. If San Francisco wins their next 2 games against the Bears and Seattle, San Francisco out of nowhere could claim the 1 seed. So that's pretty crazy because nobody really has been talking about the Niners this year. Monday Night Football, they blew out the Colts. And, so it's going to be interesting to see the fight for the 1 seed in the NFC between those 3 teams. It might, at this point, it's probably just between, I guess, Seattle and the 49ers, with the Rams maybe an outside shot to get it. But it would be crazy if the Niners came in and took the 1 seed out of nowhere.
Swooped in at the last moment. But yeah, neither here nor there for the Seahawks for the Rams game. Starting off the week pretty strong on Thursday night. And then
Absolutely.
Saturday, we had a good game with the Packers and the Bears.
Bears another crazy win from the Bears.
Win that game in overtime. Probably the bigger story that comes out of that game would be Jordan Love suffering an injury. Actually, I guess another big story coming from the Packers game was Packers fans calling to fire Matt LaFleur. At the end of the game, they were just frustrated. I saw a lot of people coming out on Twitter, flaming him and bashing him, calling for his job. And, I think that's just an overreaction for the situation. Yeah. He's helped rebuild the franchise after Aaron Rodgers, putting, as much as we don't like the Packers and Jordan Love.
Yeah, they're always good.
Doing pretty decent. He's looking like a good, solid quarterback. His trajectory looks like it's on the up and up. But the Chicago Bears continue to win games as they move on to 11-4, winning a pretty huge divisional game, hosting the Packers at home.
Yeah, the biggest thing out of that game was an onside kick with under 2 minutes left, and the kick was just Romeo Doubs waited on it instead of going to get the onside kick, and he didn't recover it. A play that worked 6% of the time. The Bears got the ball back, and that's essentially what won them the game, because after they got that, they went down and scored a touchdown, and then they got a stop in overtime, and DJ Moore caught a big pass from Caleb Williams to seal the deal in overtime. But that's why, it's important for the hands team to know what you're supposed to do on these onside kicks. Normally when you see these teams line up for the onside kick, you're like, all right, game's over. Like, they're just going to lay on it.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, but this one actually worked, which was insane. Love to see it as a football fan, because we never see that happen anymore. We really have never seen it.
Especially now that you have to announce it. It's like, okay, well, we know it's coming, so just throw
They need to get rid of it. They need to get rid of it and do the 4th and 20 thing or whatever. That'll just be better for the game of football in general. But, that was a pretty crazy Saturday night game. Thursday night, Saturday night, we're swinging a hot bat. And then we move into Sunday, and obviously there are a bunch of games that really didn't matter until you get to the NFC South matchup between the Panthers and the Bucs. We don't know. We've talked about we don't know what's going on with the Bucs lately, but the Panthers win the game as underdogs and actually take control of the NFC South. So if they, win out or the Bucs lose, they clinch it, and that's pretty crazy to say out loud before the season. It was between the Bucs and the Falcons. Nobody really thought of the Panthers as a legit threat to the NFC South, but the division is so bad that the Panthers have control of it right now.
Yeah, the Buccaneers just absolutely imploded on themselves over the last couple of weeks. I just don't know what happened. They were playing amazing at the beginning of the season whenever you had bits and pieces of their offense going down, but they finally got all their weapons in together at once, and for whatever reason, they're just not winning games. And they actually were in a position to drive down and, at the very least, kick a game-tying field goal, but Baker Mayfield throws a pretty pretty bad interception, which ultimately ends the game. Still had to get a couple more yards to get within field goal range, but at that point they were actually in a position to, at the very least, tie the game and end up throwing a pick. And Panthers just kneel the clock out in the game, but they're in a position to win the division.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with the Panthers. Keep an eye on that division moving forward. Hopefully, the Bucs can come in and swoop it up, so we don't have to see a blowout in the playoffs or whoever plays the Panthers. But one team that's been very hot lately, under the radar, Jacksonville Jaguars go into Denver and take the win at Mile High very convincingly. Trevor Lawrence, 4 total touchdowns, is playing out of his mind right now, honestly, because he started the season off great. Yeah. And out of nowhere, the Jags, their defense, their offense, special teams, Cam Little doesn't get enough attention as he has the record right now for the longest field goal kick in history. And he is a great field goal kicker. All 3 phases of the ball working out really well for the Jags right now. And, Denver, there's been speculation that when they face, they're kind of like the Patriots, people say, like they've been beaten up on some kind of worse teams.
Lower caliber talent. Yeah.
A good team. They get beat at home. Obviously, it's the NFL. Anything can happen. But, yeah, I think this says more about the Jags than the Broncos. This was a great win for Jacksonville.
Yeah, they've been playing some pretty good ball as of the last few weeks. Trevor Lawrence has been really slinging it. With the way that the season has gone for Indianapolis over the course of the last couple weeks, that kind of left an opening for Houston and Jacksonville in the AFC South, as Jacksonville sits at number 1 in that division right now, with Houston just 1 game behind. But they've been really clicking and really getting hot at the right time. Defense has looked good. Offense has looked good. Obviously, like you said, they've got a really good kicker in Cam Little. They picked up Jacoby Myers about a couple, I guess it wasn't a couple weeks ago. It was probably 4 or 5 weeks ago now that they got Jacoby Myers, and he's kind of fit right into that offense. Travis Etienne's been playing well, and then, like we've been the most critical of Trevor Lawrence, I feel like, on this show over the last couple of years, but,
well deserved.
And admit that he's been playing some good football over the last couple of weeks. That's not to say that, everything we said was false or that we take it back or anything like that, because obviously,
we don't.
Gotta prove yourself, but still, be willing to say that he's been playing some good football.
Yeah, so we'll see what Jacksonville does into the playoffs, but they've been an exciting team to watch these last couple of weeks. Moving on to Pittsburgh versus Detroit. Detroit desperately needed this game to try and make playoffs. They're still in the hunt, but their percentages go down quite a bit after the loss to Pittsburgh. And then Pittsburgh is fighting for the AFC North right now as they have the lead. The Ravens have been kind of on their tails for a little bit. Obviously, the Ravens lose in Sunday Night Football, but this game, the Pittsburgh game, was played in the afternoon. So kind of a crazy game. The Lions defense has been beaten up all year and last year. Someone probably needs to take a look at their, training staff or something, because these players should not be going down for the Lions like they have been. Jalen, they're bad when Jalen Warren is having, career rushing day on you, because he's not that good of a running back.
2 touchdowns in.
Yeah, from 45 out.
40, yeah.
But the end of the game was pretty wild as the Lions are on Pittsburgh's 10, trying to score. Last play of the game, throws the ball to Amon-Ra, catches it. He's going down, laterals to Jared Goff. Jared Goff takes the ball into the end zone. And then the refs confer for about 2 hours on what actually happened because they threw a flag. And eventually called Amon-Ra for offensive pass interference. And so game ended. Steelers get the win. Steelers played a great game, don't get me wrong. But I just hate when a game is decided it
just gets ticky-tack at the end like that,
And there was an OPI called earlier in the drive on somebody on the Lions, and it was you could tell there was a blatant shove off, and you need to call those. But I didn't think the one on Amon-Ra was necessarily definitively OPI, and also you just hate to end a game on that. That is an awful way to end a game, to take a touchdown off the board and end the game.
it's just tough because, like you were saying, to end the game on a flag, I mean, yeesh. Well, I guess when you look at the replay, he did get full extension, which I guess is
He did.
technically in the rule book what they define as offensive pass interference. But if it was that blatant and obvious, they should have immediately called it as what it was. But it was the fact that they had to they had to have a meeting with Congress to get the call.
That was ridiculous. And look, I'm not an ex-defender in the NFL or anything, so I'm completely biased, and I'm allowed to say this because this is our podcast. But we're here to see offense. We don't pay, we don't watch, we don't go to games to see a defensive game. No one wants to see a game where the defenses just absolutely dominate the game unless you just love that kind of thing. Offensive pass interference is something that's rarely called and should be rarely called, only when it's blatant. I guess it's a debate to say whether or not this is blatant, but in the end, Steelers get the win. And, Detroit's not really good enough this year for the playoffs anyways, but could have been an electric finish. And
the other thing to think about for Steelers fans, like you were saying, they're fighting for the AFC North right now. And actually, I saw earlier today, this is Monday, earlier on Monday, DK Metcalf actually did get suspended for 2 games. I guess on the sideline, he got into it with a Detroit fan and ends up shoving him. They were leaning over the railing, talking to him, whatever. And he
that was big.
Shoving the fan, and then he actually gets suspended for 2 weeks. So that kind of hurts you a little bit, just because he's been a pretty good piece of that offense. And you're 9-6. The Ravens don't look like they're doing anything. But, you want to set yourself up for success in the coming weeks, and then you want to get hot, rolling into the postseason.
So, Pittsburgh's got Cleveland next week, and then Baltimore week 18. Baltimore's got the Packers and then the Steelers. So, let's say the Steelers lose to the Browns, and the Ravens beat the Packers, which is a reality if Jordan Love's not playing. And, that week 18 game, how it all shakes out could be for the division in a playoff spot.
Yeah.
So, not having DK Metcalf is a huge penalty. You just can't be throwing hands at fans or anything in the stands. There's speculation as to what he said to DK. There's a video of him calling him by his full name. I don't know if that's all that was said. I don't know what happened, but you can't grab a fan. You're held to a different level of professionalism when you're playing and getting paid millions of dollars to do it. And you've kind of got to be able to take what people, the fans shouldn't be.
The other thing too is I'm watching the video, and I had read the headline first and then watched the video, So when I actually saw the clip, it didn't look like
it seemed like an overreaction on DK.
That bad.
Yeah. I don't know what it was.
I don't know what was said, and the shove didn't even look that aggressive either, just because he didn't really have an angle. They weren't on level ground. He was 3 feet above him. He was pushing him, that way or whatever.
Dude, if you're the fan in that situation, he grabs a hold of you, just jump over the railing so you can be like, oh, he pulled me over, and then you get, I'm just thinking from a financial perspective. But
thinking money.
One thing to highlight here before we move on is everybody said George Pickens was a problem because of his physicality and violence.
Dude,
and they signed DK Metcalf, and he punched a fan.
I was about to say, it's something in that. Who's the wide receiver coach?
I don't know, but he's telling him to pick fights with everybody. Apparently.
Because they said George Pickens was the problem, and he's over here. He's had a couple things here and there, I'll admit.
Very minor.
I would say for the most part, he is not.
Pretty tame.
At all, he has not been a problem.
Nope, but DK's over here doing the same thing. DK
Metcalf comes in, he's getting suspended or whatever. Who's the Steelers' wide receiver coach? That's who they need to be inspecting right now.
Absolutely. Anyways, big win for Pittsburgh. Moving on to Sunday Night Football. Patriots, the narrative has always been they're just beating up on bad teams. Well, they play a somewhat decent team in Baltimore and get the win. But Lamar Jackson does get hurt in like the second quarter, and Snoop Huntley comes in to try and he actually had a pretty decent game for the Ravens. He was 9 for 10, 65 yards. But in the end, New England, because of a Zay Flowers fumble, kind of sealed the game and moves on as they're trying to clinch the AFC East, which I don't think they've officially clinched yet. So they do get a playoff spot with this win. So New England is back in the playoffs. And Drake May looked pretty good in this game. Stephon Diggs looked great. He had 138 yards. The Patriots are going to be a team to worry about in the playoffs, especially if they get the number 1 seed and everything goes through New England. The AFC is kind of a toss-up right now, but the Patriots, they needed this win, and they got it. Props to them. And then the Ravens, they've been pretty mediocre all season, and if Lamar's hurt, then you really don't want the Ravens in the playoffs anyways. So big win for New England.
Yeah, and I mean, even when Lamar's in the playoffs, he doesn't perform. But actually, the Chiefs not being there does throw up a big, I guess that's a toss-up in the air, because he's been a hindrance for the Bills and the Ravens for in regards to the playoffs over the last couple of years. Obviously, the Ravens most likely will not be there, but the Bills will. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Yep. And then for the AFC East, the Patriots end off with the Dolphins and the Jets, and then the Bills end off with Eagles, Jets. So
New England will probably clinch.
Most likely will win out and get the division. I mean, the Bills may win out as well, but you'd need New England to drop a game.
I would assume if New England wins in Week 17. Because don't the Bills? Oh no, the Bills have 4 losses. Okay, yeah. So Week 18 could be big against the Jets for New England, but for New England and for Buffalo, Week 18 could be big for New England, just for everyone. So there are still a lot of playoff narratives coming into these last 2 weeks. So
even though it's the last week and the last couple weeks, and a lot of these teams have been decided, there are still some very much so meaningful games for top teams. But anyways, here's in our shows on Under Review. Brought to you a quote from the Roger Staubach, and he said, "Winning isn't getting ahead of others; it's getting ahead of yourself."
Ain't that the truth? Thank you for tuning in this week, and we will see you next week with another episode of Under Review.